144. That's how many picks it took for Shedeur Sanders to finally hear his name called. A player who was considered by many to be a top 10 pick in the first round, and at worst, a second round pick. But I don't think anyone in their right mind predicted that Shedeur Sanders would fall to the 5th round. Because just a couple of months ago, at the beginning of the year, teams were infatuated with him. There is no doubt he's a talented player, and he proved that in college at 2 different programs. And he put up incredible numbers for 4 consecutive years, and even broke records. But just a couple months later, it seems like the entirety of the NFL has turned its back on Shedeur. Every single one of the 32 teams in the NFL passed on him again and again and again. So what's really going on here? How did a player that was highly touted by a lot of teams, who was supposed to be a first round lock, experience the biggest draft slide in NFL history, being selected in the 5th round and with the 144th overall pick, where he was drafted to a team that has 5 quarterbacks all fighting for the starting quarterback position? How in the world did he end up here? Let's find out.
Fans, teammates, coaches, the show has just begun.
Primetime Deion Sanders is the greatest cornerback in the history of football.
Everybody got on jury. Even the baby got a little something. We ready now.
I got one thing to say. This is my house. Woo! I built this, and this is my house.
Being the son of Primetime himself, football ran through the Sanders bloodline. Shedeur's football career began at Trinity Christian School in Cedar Hill, Texas. His dad, who was the offensive coordinator for the team, gave him the opportunity to become the starting quarterback in his freshman year. In his 4 years at Trinity Christian, he amassed over 12,600 passing yards and 166 touchdowns. He also led the school to 3 consecutive state championships, won 47 games, and lost just 5. He was considered a 3-star/4-star prospect by many. He was good, but he just wasn't seen as anything special, probably because he played against some very weak competition. Eventually, in January 2021, he joined the HBCU Jackson State University after his dad had been named the head coach of their football program. The Jackson State Tigers played in the FCS, the second highest subdivision of D1 football. Shedeur, as a team starter, led his team to an 11-2 record in 2021 and a 12-1 record in his sophomore year. The JSU Tigers were named SWAC champions in both those years. The last time they had won the SWAC was in 2007. In his 2 years there, Shedeur accumulated almost 7,000 passing yards, 70 passing touchdowns, 9 rushing touchdowns, and just 14 interceptions. He quickly became one of the best players in all of the FCS. Following Shedeur's sophomore year with the Tigers, his father Deion Sanders, after having found a lot of success with the JSU Tigers, had been offered the head coaching position with the Colorado Buffaloes.
And it's time for Coach Prime and the Primetime era, and it starts today. And so let me introduce Coach Prime.
This team was a part of the FBS, the highest and hardest division of college football. This opportunity wasn't just greatly beneficial to Deion Sanders, it was also a great opportunity for his son, Shedeur. Having his dad be the head coach of the Buffaloes meant a smooth transition to the FBS, where he was practically guaranteed the starting quarterback position. And obviously, this decision was a no-brainer. Now, finding success with the Colorado Buffaloes was going to be no easy task. This team that had just ended their previous season winning only 1 game had a lot of problems. But the Sanders name carried a lot of power. Deion Sanders brought a brand new brand of football for the Buffaloes. As he calls it, Primetime. He gave them a new identity, an identity of winners. And for better or for worse, this team that no one cared about last year was on top of everyone's radar this year. The Buffaloes roster was completely overhauled with the addition of 86 new players, and at the helm of this entirely new football team were 2 players, cornerback and wide receiver 2-way star player Travis Hunter, and the Buffaloes' new starting quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. But despite all the hype and attention surrounding this program, the Buffaloes didn't find much meaningful success, at least not in their first year. They ended with a record of 4-8 and won just 1 of their final 8 games. Individually, Shedeur was still good, but it wasn't enough to lead the Buffaloes towards a winning season. That, however, came in 2024, when Shedeur became one of the best in college football, and when the Buffaloes started to become genuinely good. The Buffaloes in 2024 achieved a 9-4 record and were on the verge of being in the Big 12 championship game and even making the college football playoffs. But tiebreakers ultimately ended up being the deciding factor in the Buffaloes failing to qualify. Shedeur, with his 4,100 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns, and 74 completion percentage, solidified himself as the best quarterback the program had ever seen. He set a new precedent as he broke single-season school records for passing yards, passing touchdowns, completion percentage, and quarterback rating. The Colorado Buffaloes also ended up retiring his number. Nationally, he was recognized as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He was a Heisman candidate. He was named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year and also won the Johnny Unitas Award, given to the best senior quarterback in the country. Following this incredible 2024 season by Shedeur, he declared for the 2025 NFL Draft. And here's where it gets interesting. By all accounts, Shedeur was considered quarterback 2 in his draft class. Only Cam Ward was undoubtedly better than him. And this was a general consensus by most teams. He was an elite, but he was still very good. Good enough to be selected in the top 10. Well, supposedly. But as draft day inched forward, the tide started slowly turning. Narratives about Shedeur having character issues started forming, and an apprehensive feeling that Shedeur was going to fall in the draft started looming. And then draft day came around, and the teams that were supposed to select Shedeur in the first round didn't.
The New York Giants select Abdul Carter. The Cleveland Browns select Mason Graham. The New Orleans Saints select Kelvin Banks Jr. The Pittsburgh Steelers select Derek Harmon. Defensive tackle.
But there was no way Shedeur was falling past round 2, right? Well, the last real good chance that Shedeur had of being selected with a premium pick was pick 40, when the Saints were on the board and in need of a quarterback. If Shedeur wasn't drafted here, there was no telling where Shedeur was going to fall to.
With the 40th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Tyler Shuck, quarterback, Louisville.
After this unexpected selection, it became apparent and glaring that there was something very wrong with Shedeur. He fell past the second round and the third round and the fourth round and was picked behind 2 more quarterbacks who were not better than him, and he was passed on by all 32 teams over and over and over. But that fall from grace came to an end at pick 144.
The Cleveland Browns select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado.
So, the question on everybody's mind: why in the world did Shedeur Sanders experience the biggest draft slide in NFL history? Well, I think there's 3 main factors. The first is the Sanders brand. Shedeur's father, aka Deion Sanders, has always been a very polarizing person. A person who did whatever he wanted and said whatever he pleased because there was never anyone to check him. He was the best at what he did. The best cornerback of all time, in fact. And he let you know that he was the best, and there was nothing you could do about it. A person with this much confidence, poise, and mental fortitude would be a fool to not instill this self-assurance into their children as well. But as a result of this confidence that Deion has passed on to his son, Shedeur has said and done a lot of things that NFL teams and also social media has perceived as arrogance.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't give me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over, so it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me.
His father, Deion Sanders, has always been a massive force in his career. He's paved the way for his son everywhere he ever went, opening doors and giving him the best opportunities and the best resources at every stage of Shedeur's football career. And he was trying to do the same thing in the NFL as well, trying to use his leverage to dictate Shedeur's path. And the NFL teams, well, they didn't appreciate that.
So have you told him privately who you would like for him to play for?
It's not like that. It's not like who I would like for him to play for. It's a couple teams that I won't allow him to play for.
But the second factor paints a clear picture of what was going on behind the scenes. You've probably heard of it by now, but there's been a ton of reports that Shedeur completely bombed some of these pre-draft interviews with NFL teams. To begin with, Sanders didn't even interview many teams at the NFL Combine. He decided to interview with only about 7 teams, which isn't uncommon for players expected to be one of the first off the board. But Shedeur Sanders was never a top 10 lock, and to make matters worse, what he allegedly did in these interviews was far different from what a normal prospect would do. Recently, a report came out that the Giants had shown Sanders an install, or a package of plays the team would be considering adding to the repertoire. And there were mistakes intentionally put into the install. He didn't catch them and got caught on it, and it didn't go well after that. In another interview, a team showed Sanders one of his interceptions and asked him to explain. He responded with, "Well, I like to get into a rhythm earlier in the game." Then both parties ended up arguing, and Sanders' conclusion was, "Well, maybe I'm not a fit for you." In some other interviews, he reportedly sandbagged, meaning he downplayed himself or made himself seem undesirable to these teams that he didn't want to go to. And one anonymous NFL coach even said, "It was the worst formal interview I've ever been in my life. He's so entitled, he takes unnecessary sacks, he never plays on time, he has horrible body language, he blames teammates, but the biggest thing is, he's not that good." This is a very bold and intense statement, and no wonder the coach wanted to keep his identity a secret. But you should take this quote along with all the other reports with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, as of now, it's a bunch of he said, she said. But I think the NFL, through all these reports and given where he was drafted, has made it clear. They don't like how Shedeur Sanders carries himself, they don't like the things he says, and they don't like the things he does. All these harsh opinions and all this scrutiny is very reminiscent of what his father went through. But unlike his father, Shedeur doesn't have that leverage, which brings me to my third and final point. Shedeur just isn't good enough to justify his quote-unquote personality flaws. He has problems taking too many sacks, he doesn't have the prototypical quarterback traits, he doesn't possess a big arm, he can't throw as deep or zip the ball to tight windows like other quarterbacks. He is not an athletic freak or a physical specimen by any means. This lack of upside, per se, is a big factor in why teams felt his abilities and production didn't justify the polarizing personality. While some may see Shedeur's confidence as a good thing, me included, most NFL teams and owners saw it as a deterrent, a warning to stay away. Some NFL teams, at the order of their owner, completely took Shedeur off their draft board and never even evaluated him because his personality was so egregious to them. These three factors, the personality and brand, the interviews, and the lack of talent to justify these actions, are the reason why Shedeur fell to the 5th round. However, all those mishaps and misfortunes that Shedeur endured just recently, while painful and quite honestly unfair, are all in the past. What happened happened. What matters now is that he has a foot in the door. And regardless of what occurred to him, I believe that Shedeur still remains confident in himself. The only difference is that now he carries a chip on his shoulder. He has a reason to go even harder. Shedeur has been put in a situation where he can prove himself to be deserving of the starting quarterback position. With the Browns having 5 quarterbacks on the roster at the moment and not one of them being a clear cut above the rest, he has the opportunity to climb up the ranks and still become the face of a franchise. While Shedeur Sanders has been following in the footsteps of greatness his whole life, the NFL made it clear that they don't see him as another Dion. While Dion and Shedeur as father and son are related by blood and by that polarizing last name, as football players they couldn't be any more different. This isn't a knock on Shedeur. It's not saying that he can or won't ever find success like his father. Rather, it's a proposition to take his own path and become his own player, find his own success, and show everyone that he's more than just his father's son.